You probably remember seeing him on your television every single weekend. The big smile, the quick jokes, the man who made millions of people laugh on one of Britain's most loved shows. For years, David Walliams was everywhere. Children adored his books, families enjoyed his comedy, and viewers tuned in just to watch him at that judging table on Britain's Got Talent. He was not just famous. He was one of the most recognized faces in the whole country. But today, that is all gone. The TV work has stopped. His major publisher dropped him. The charities quietly walked away. And a court case that should have stayed private ended up telling the whole world things he never wanted anyone to hear. So how does someone go from being one of Britain's biggest stars to being dropped by almost everyone in just a few short years? That is exactly what we are walking you through today. And this story has more twists than anyone saw coming. Before the fame, before the books, before Britain's Got Talent, there was a regular boy growing up in Surrey. David Edward Walliams was born on the 20th of August, 1971 in Wimbledon, South London. He grew up in a town called Banstead with his mum Kathleen, his dad Peter, and his sister Julie. His father worked as a London transport engineer, and his mum was a lab technician at a local school. Nothing about his childhood pointed towards superstardom. He was just a kid going to school like everyone else. But even back then, something was different. He loved performing. He loved making people laugh. That energy never switched off. From 1989 to 1992, he studied drama at the University of Bristol. Then, during a summer break in 1990, everything changed. He joined the National Youth Theatre. And in that one room, he met a young man named Matt Lucas. The two did impressions, messed around, and made each other laugh. They did not know it yet, but they had just found the partnership that would take them both to the very top of British entertainment. Here is something most people do not know. When Walliams first tried to register with the Actors Union Equity, there was already someone using the name David Walliams. So he added an extra letter and became David Walliams. That small change became the name millions would come to know. Once he and Matt Lucas reconnected after that first meeting, they got to work. They appeared in small sketch shows, built their comedy style, and slowly developed a following through shows like Rock Profile and Sir Bernard's Stately Homes. But nobody could have guessed what was coming next, because the show they were quietly putting together was about to become one of the biggest comedy hits Britain had ever seen. Little Britain first aired on BBC Three in 2003 and immediately caught fire. The show was loud, bold, and completely unlike anything else on television at the time. It moved to BBC One, reaching millions more viewers, and then crossed the Atlantic to HBO in the United States. Walliams played a string of unforgettable characters, including Emily Howard and Sebastian Love, the Prime Minister's assistant obsessed with his boss in the most awkward way possible. The show became a cultural moment. Little Britain Live toured the country in 2006. Little Britain USA arrived in 2008. In January 2005, Radio Times named Walliams and Lucas the most powerful people in TV comedy. That was the biggest title you could give a comedian in Britain at that time. Come Fly With Me, their next big project, launched on Christmas Day 2010 and became the most watched comedy of that entire year. Everything they touched seemed to turn to gold. But underneath all that success, cracks were already forming that most people were not paying attention to yet. The fame did not stop with comedy. Walliams kept pushing himself into new areas of television. He played a smooth and dangerous character in the serious drama Capturing Mary in 2007 and received strong reviews. He played comedian Frankie Howard in a television film. He appeared in Doctor Who. He starred in the Hollywood movie Dinner for Schmucks alongside Paul Rudd and Steve Carell. He created and co-wrote a BBC sitcom called Big School, starring alongside Catherine Tate and Philip Glenister. He performed in theater productions, including Harold Pinter's No Man's Land and A Midsummer Night's Dream. He even appeared on stage with Monty Python at the O2 Arena. The man was genuinely talented and genuinely hardworking. But the role that would change his image most was still ahead of him, and it came from a very different kind of television. In 2012, Walliams joined the judging panel of Britain's Got Talent on ITV alongside Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, and Alicia Dixon. something interesting happened. The audience, who had grown up watching Little Britain, now saw a warmer, more playful side of him. He was quick with a joke, kind to nervous contestants, and always entertaining. For a lot of families watching together on Saturday nights, this was the David Walliams they knew and loved best. He won the National Television Award for Best Judge in 2015, 2018, and 2019. His profile was bigger than it had ever been. But here is the thing about a very tall building. The higher it goes, the harder the fall when something goes wrong. And things were already going wrong behind the scenes, even if most people watching at home could not see it yet. Away from television, his personal life had its own turbulence. His father, Peter, died in 2007 from an aggressive liver cancer. In 2009, he began dating Dutch model Laura Stone. They got engaged in January 2010 and married at Claridge's Hotel in London just 4 months later. In May 2013, they welcomed a son. They lived in a North London house that had once belonged to Noel Gallagher of Oasis, complete with a recording studio. From the outside, it looked like everything a famous person could want. But in March 2015, reports emerged that the couple had quietly separated. By September that year, Walliams had filed for divorce, and the marriage was formally over within 6 weeks. He spoke openly about his identity in interviews, saying he disliked labels when it came to his personal life. He had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and spoke about how his famous charity swims, including the English Channel and the River Thames, had helped him through difficult personal periods. These were glimpses of a more complicated inner life behind the polished public image. But the stories that would truly shake things up were not about his personal life. They were about what had been happening on stage and behind the scenes for years. Long before any major headline appeared, certain parts of Walliams' career had already made people deeply uncomfortable. During the Little Britain Live tour in 2006 and at various charity appearances, he regularly performed a sketch involving a character called Des K, described as a gay former children's entertainer and sex offender. The act involved pulling audience members on stage and simulating very inappropriate behavior. Human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell publicly described the sketch as crossing a serious line into the sexual humiliation of young men, calling it sickening and completely unacceptable. Matt Lucas later wrote in his autobiography that some of the male audience volunteers were minors, and that Walliams did not always get away with it even at the time. These were not things that only became a problem because the world changed later. People were already uncomfortable while it was happening. In 2011, Walliams made a remark about Harry Styles, who was just 17 years old, that was so inappropriate it prompted complaints to Ofcom and Channel 4. In 2017, he dressed as Kim Jong-un for Halloween in a way many people called yellowface, and when criticism came, he responded with a joke. The pattern of pushing past limits and brushing off concern was becoming hard to ignore. And then came January 2018. That month, Walliams appeared as host at a charity event called the President's Club Charitable Trust Charity Auction. It was his third time hosting. He auctioned off the chance for a winner's name to appear in one of his upcoming books, and even offered to personally deliver the book to the winner's family over afternoon tea. It sounded warm and polished, but the event later became a major scandal after undercover journalists reported that female hostesses hired for the evening had been groped and sexually harassed throughout the night by the all-male guests. Walliams stated he had attended in a purely professional capacity and left immediately after his hosting role was done. He said he was absolutely appalled by the reports, but not everyone accepted that. Some bookshops removed his books from sale. One bookshop owner argued publicly that even if Walliams had not personally done anything wrong, he should have walked out the moment he heard inappropriate comments being made in that room. He had not walked out. While he was never accused of carrying out any of the behavior himself, his presence still became part of the story. And this was not the last time. The next controversy was not going to involve other people's actions. It was going to involve his own words, captured on a microphone he forgot was still on. By June 2020, the worldwide conversation about what was acceptable on television had shifted dramatically following the death of George Floyd and the global Black Lives Matter movement. Netflix, BritBox, Now TV, and BBC iPlayer all removed Little Britain and Come Fly With Me from their platforms. The reason was the use of blackface and the portrayal of racial, disability, class, and gender stereotypes across both shows. Both Walliams and Lucas posted public apologies, saying they had already privately spoken in recent years about regretting playing characters of other races, that it was wrong, and that they were very sorry. The apology was genuine in tone, but the shows were gone from every major platform. Around the same time, his children's books came under fire too. Author and activist Jack Monroe publicly described his books as like Little Britain for kids, accusing them of racism, classism, and body shaming beneath a cheerful surface. One story featuring a Chinese boy was eventually challenged as casual racism and removed from future editions, replaced in 2022. The pressure was now hitting from every direction at once. But the blow that would truly end his decade of family television success was still approaching. And when it arrived, it moved fast. In January 2020, during the filming of an audition episode for Britain's Got Talent at the London Palladium, Walliams made comments about contestants that he believed were completely private. What he did not know was that the microphone at the judges' table was still recording. According to a leaked transcript later reported by The Guardian, after one older male performer finished an unsuccessful audition and walked off, Walliams referred to him using a deeply offensive slur, repeating it 3 times. After a female contestant finished her performance and left the stage, he described her in crude and explicitly sexual terms, repeating and escalating those comments. These were not comedy characters. These were not old sketches from a different era. These were remarks made about ordinary members of the public who had been brave enough to stand on that stage. Walliams released an apology, calling the comments private conversations with friends that were never meant to be shared, and saying he was sorry. Thames TV said the language had been inappropriate and that Walliams had been reminded of expectations around professional conduct. Crucially, The Guardian reported that transcripts from 3 episodes showed no offensive remarks from Simon Cowell or the other judges at all. Not long after the story broke, Walliams resigned from his judging seat. Bruno Tonioli was announced as his replacement. Simon Cowell later said publicly the comments were completely unacceptable and admitted the situation had been upsetting, while Alicia Dixon said she was saddened not to have her great friend back on the show. But the show moved forward, and Walliams was left to face what came next alone. What followed was not silence. Walliams took legal action against Fremantle, one of the production companies behind Britain's Got Talent, arguing that his private conversations had been recorded, stored, and eventually leaked without his knowledge or consent. He said he had not known the microphones kept running during breaks throughout the filming day. Legal documents connected to the case revealed that a psychiatrist who had treated him for years described his depression at this point as possibly the worst since they had first started working together. Walliams himself said he had experienced dark and suicidal thoughts. He said the fear that anything he said could be recorded and leaked had taken away his ability to be spontaneous or funny, and that he had become afraid to walk into a studio at all. His lawyers noted that his income had dropped from over £3.5 million in 2022 to just over £100,000 in the first 5 months of 2023. In November 2023, it was reported that Walliams and Fremantle had reached a private settlement. Fremantle said it was sincerely sorry that his private conversations had been published and that this had caused him great distress. The legal fight was over, but the damage to his career was not going away. In 2025, reports emerged that HarperCollins UK, the publisher behind all of his best-selling children's books for nearly 2 decades, had decided to drop him. Reports linked the decision to an internal investigation into allegations of inappropriate behavior toward young women, including claims involving junior female staff at the company. One woman who raised concerns reportedly left after a financial settlement. Protective measures were said to have been put in place, including requiring staff to attend meetings with Walliams in pairs. HarperCollins publicly confirmed only that under new leadership it had decided not to publish any further titles by him. Walliams strongly denied all the allegations, and his spokesperson said he had never been told about any investigation or given any chance to respond. But the consequences kept stacking up regardless. The BBC confirmed it had no future projects with him planned. Footage of him reportedly performing Nazi salutes during a BBC Christmas special recording in 2025 was shelved and never broadcast. Waterstones removed him from its 2025 Children's Book Festival. By 2026, his remaining charities had moved on too. He was no longer an ambassador for the Children's Trust. Sources said no charity wanted to be publicly connected to his name. The story of David Walliams is one of the most dramatic falls from public life that British entertainment has seen in a very long time. At his peak, he was a comedy legend, a best-selling children's author, a beloved television judge, and a charity fundraising hero. Today, nearly every door that was once open to him appears closed. The television work is gone. The publishing deal is gone. The charities have moved on. And the warm Saturday night image he spent over a decade carefully building has been replaced by a very different story entirely. Whether he ever finds a way back remains an open question. Some people believe time and genuine accountability can eventually turn things around. Others feel that too much has happened for things to ever look the same again. But one thing is certain. The version of David Walliams that millions of families welcomed into their living rooms every Saturday night is not coming back anytime soon. What do you think? Is there any path back for David Walliams, or has too much come out for audiences to ever see him the same way again? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this one, covering the Real rises and Real falls behind the biggest names in entertainment history, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a single video. We will see you next time.